The impact of election night in Detroit and beyond, plus a candid conversation on healthcare in Michigan with Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO Dan Loepp. It's right now on MiWeek.
Michigan's turnaround is being powered by things we do better than anywhere else in the world. Today's global leaders routinely turn to Michigan to work on their most difficult problems. That's because the engineering talent in this part of the world is simply the best. So many possibilities lie ahead for Michigan's future. These opportunities are here and starting to happen. The vision for the new Michigan. Share it, talk it up, drive it home. Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hi, and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. There's a lot to cover on this week's show. Tuesday's election brings a new era in Detroit. Mike Duggan gets the mayor's job. How will he work with Kevyn Orr and the governor, and what will he be able to actually do? Plus, there's a new Detroit City Council, and the question of bankruptcy is still being fought out in court. Also coming up tonight, growing concern with Obamacare, how it's impacting people in Michigan and how they're choosing insurance. We'll talk to Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO Dan Loepp. But we start tonight with the new mayor and what this change really means. So let's start off with that and our contributors, the editorial page editors of the Detroit News and Detroit Free Press, Nolan, Finley, and Stephen Henderson. Gentlemen, there's nothing I like more than sitting down at MiWeek after an election night.
We're comfortable today.
I know. We're a little relaxed here today.
We've had a hard week.
I know. Yes, you have had a hard week. All right. So the build up to this election has been months and months. We've talked about it so many times. So finally, with the vote in, and now that Mike Duggan has won, what did this say about what Detroiters really wanted, Nolan?
Change. I mean, clearly, they cast their vote for a guy who walked out of the suburbs 18 months ago. I know he spent a lot of time trying to make the case that he's a Detroiter. He's not a Detroiter. He's a suburbanite. He's the kind of candidate you would have never expected Detroit to elect. And yet people are desperate. They're frustrated. They want something different, and they certainly went for a different candidate.
So the vote for change?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the motivated part of the Detroit electorate, and it has been now for at least 4 years. I mean, if you go back to 2009 and look at I don't know, what do we have, 10 elections that year because of the climate
right.
stuff? Each one you saw people looking for something different than what we had. I mean, Dave Bing was also a suburban transplant,
a business guy
who literally moved into the city just to run for mayor. This week we also saw, for the second time in 4 years, a majority of the city council turnover. That's something that hadn't happened when it happened in 2009. It hadn't happened since 1973. So the part of the electorate that's really energized, I think, is the group that wants something better than what we have.
But that's a good point, Steve, because, I mean, 4 years ago, people thought they were voting for a Mike Duggan. They thought they were voting for a guy with the management skills and turnaround skills to make a real difference in the city. And I think, they took a look at Mike Duggan, and he sold them the right message. He didn't talk about anything except turning around the city.
Well, Mike Duggan also had the political background too. So
yes,
I mean, so he's got this skill to do it. So now let's make the planner sheet for him. What does Mike have to do in the next 2 weeks?
He's got to establish a very effective working relationship with Kevyn Orr.
Possible? Is that even possible?
So. My colleague Dan Howes has a column in the Detroit News today talking about all of the behind-the-scenes work to make that happen. The governor very much wants to make it happen. They see Duggan as a guy who would be a lot more effective at restructuring the operations of government than Kevyn Orr has been. There's growing frustration in Lansing that the operations of the city aren't getting fixed quickly enough. And, he's relied on a lot of consultants because he's had no choice. And the consultants haven't been as effective in changing the culture and operation of the government as the governor would like.
I'd love to be the fly on the wall, though, in that meeting where they both sit down. What does that meeting sound like?
Well,
what does it look like?
One thing that I noticed is that Kevyn Orr and Mike Duggan are a lot alike in the way that they approach their work. And I think there's an opportunity there for them to build a partnership around that. They are both about getting the work done, right, and holding people accountable when they don't get it done. Kevyn Orr has said for a while privately that he badly needs a partner, that the quote-unquote three-headed monster of bankruptcy, restructuring, and running the city is killing them, and that they don't have enough people, competent people, to help them do that. And I think they're very hopeful that Duggan will not only be that person, but also surround himself with people who can do the work.
Okay, so I understand that he said he badly needs a partner, but in reality, though, the buck has to stop with someone. Someone gets that final answer. They're not trually partners in that sense.
No,
and
that'll be
Kevin.
And is Duggan going to chafe under that?
Well, of course he's going to chafe under it, but he's also a person who understands reality. I don't see him going out here tilting at windmills. He knows there's an end to this, and that if he can help, if he can cooperate, if he can make things work, the end will come sooner than it might otherwise. I mean, in truth, the governor can keep his hands on this city for 4 years if he needed to, basically, the way the law works. And I think what they've told Mike is, look, you play ball, you help us out, you get us to where we need to be, and this time next year we're gone and you've got it.
All right, so that's what I was going to say. Now there's this, I guess, relationship now with the governor. How involved is he going to be in this?
He told me Sunday he plans to be extremely involved in building the relationship between Duggan and Orr. That he sees that as his role primarily because, you know, Kevyn Orr reports to him. This is his decision to be running the city from the state.
So is Dave Bing saying, well, then where were you X amount of months ago?
Oh, I think Dave Bing got that chance early on, and Kevyn Orr discovered how bad a manager Dave Bing was when he got here, that the city was in shambles, and B, Dave Bing kept pushing back against the things that Kevyn wanted to do and said needed to be done. So, you know.
And Bing never could build in a relationship with the governor.
Right.
And you've got to do that first. I mean, before you can expect the governor to advocate on your behalf with Kevyn Orr, you've got to build a relationship with the governor, and he didn't do it. I suspect Mike has been doing that right along. He and Andy Dillon are very close, and Andy's helped sort of bridge that. And this is the right governor to make that possible. This is a governor who has very little interest in partisan politics. Mike Duggan is going to become immediately a major player again in the Democratic Party, and that might typically scare a governor from the other party, you know, looking at somebody who might someday sit in his seat or help put somebody in his seat, and Rick Snyder doesn't care anything about that.
All right, so I understand that everyone's got to sit down and get on the same page and use all the cliches of begin the partnership and work together, but what kind of time frame are we looking at? Because people who are living in the city of Detroit say, well, you know, once you get into office in January, we've got to know how this is going to work out. We still have the question of bankruptcy that's sitting out there, and then, you know, you're looking at city services, whether you're looking at lighting, and you're also looking at public safety. We just had a massive shooting in the city of Detroit just on Wednesday night. People are looking, saying, okay, talk, figure it out, but they're still expecting something.
I mean, people in the city are very frustrated. They're also very scared. I mean, I will admit that based on the crime that's going on and the random crime that we're seeing in Detroit now, I don't let my wife go get gas anymore because I feel like the carjackings and the random muggings and things that are going on are just a little too intense right now. And I know a lot of people are having those same conversations around their dinner tables.
That's not living, because that's a simple thing that you should be able to go and do.
That's absolutely right, and that's the thing that Mike Duggan will have to face immediately, is the fact that, I won't move out of the city because of that. But there are a lot of people who might. I mean, there are a lot of people who will say, you know what, that's enough.
You won't at this minute.
At this point.
But
sure.
if it had been you or your wife whose car had been carjacked just down the street from where you live,
sure, right.
you might think differently. And that's just it. Every time one of these things happen, every time, like we had Napoleon's friend, the Bishop Ellis, his brother-in-law, shot in his home, it causes people to think, do I stay? And people will not stay in a place they don't feel safe, and they can't feel safe in Detroit now, as Steve said, given the randomness of the crime. Public safety is the one area where we don't have time for long-term planning. You can't say, well, this is going to be a 3-year or a 5-year effort. People need to see some results now. I think they need to put a multi-agency task force together to go after the unsolved murders. We're not solving 70% of the murders in this city go unsolved. So you got murderers walking the street. They need to clear that backlog up, start sending the message that you can't get away with murder in Detroit, that it's no longer a lawless community. That needs to be an immediate message.
Has that worked in the past, though, when you have multi-agency task force coming in and working like that?
It hasn't worked in Detroit for a lot of reasons, not least of which is the dysfunction in DPD, with the way that it's run and with the accountability. I think Chief Craig is really working that end of it, but it's going to be a while before he's got that to the point where you can count on them to do that part of it. In addition to solving the murders, I mean, the problem in the city is the and I don't know how many of them there are, but it's the habitual offenders, right? It's the people who commit crime over and over again because they feel like there's not going to be a consequence. And it's not just murder. I mean, you look at the number of shootings. A shooting really is just a murder gone awry. I mean, it's somebody trying to kill somebody else and not being successful. That number is much higher than it should be, and you've got to have the warrant squad going out finding. A lot of these folks are people who should be in jail already. Warren Evans made a lot of headway with that when he was police chief. We haven't really focused on that since then, and so
home invasions too, Steve.
Absolutely.
That rattles people. It shakes their faith in the city. They'll put up with, okay, I'm going to wait. I know they're going to get the garbage fixed, and I know they're going to get the parks mowed someday. They will not wait to feel safe in their own homes.
It's quality of life. It's quality of life. All right, I want to skip back and just take a step back, looking at the election, looking at city council. Mm-hmm. What kind of role will this new council play? And do we have that? Group of 5? I think that people are talking about in terms of getting votes and different things through.
I think we got 6 Tuesday night. I can count 6 fairly level-headed, change-minded votes. The other 3, and that's where we were. That's where we were 4 years ago.
Break it down. Who?
I think Jenkins, obviously, at large. Santil Jenkins, James Tate, Scott Benson, Andre Spivey, Raquel Lopez, and Gabe Leland. I think that's a pretty good core group, and it helps to have 6, right? Because not everybody's going to agree on everything all the time. Mm-hmm. You only need 5 to get something done.
Really, really, I mean, if you look at the places where maybe we were disappointed on election night, it was the return of Brenda Jones, who's been just absolutely useless on council and an obstructionist, and the addition of George Cushionberry, which
I'm not sure how to read.
Well, he's got a
push
history
on that. I mean, he's somebody we all know, and he's been around a long time. He was not a bad legislator. I think he's a throwback to some degree, and we'll see what role that plays. But there's some people who think that he will be primed for a leadership role because he's somebody with experience and understands the city.
So are we going to see a new era of council? Are we going to see a more
very different
council than we have seen in years past?
I think it's a very different council than the one that we're saying goodbye to now. You do have 5 new faces, and you've got the district dynamic taking over. You have people who won who would never have won if they had to run city.
We've got to give that a chance to play out before we make that sort of declaration, because we were all tickled to death 4 years ago.
You are so down on council.
They were much better, but they didn't.
They didn't get to where they needed to go.
They didn't, not by a long shot. Yeah. And the mayor and the council never worked together. I mean, there's an interesting dynamic here with this strong mayor now, a much stronger mayor in the persona of Mike Duggan, much stronger mayor politically, a guy who certainly knows how to run the political.
Pull the strings.
Yeah, and a council by district, and particularly the way the charter sets these councils up. The council people are elected by district. There's an expectation from the people in their district that they'll be able to solve their problems, that they'll be able to come to them and get a street light fixed or a park mowed. The charter gives these council people no resources, no real authority over services, and that is going to make the strong mayor even stronger, because anytime one of these district council members wants something, they're going to have to go to Mike Duggan and ask for it.
Yeah.
And that's going to give him all sorts of leverage in terms of getting them to go along with his agenda. He's going to have a lot more leverage over council than Dave Bing ever dreamed of having.
Is that a bad thing?
That's how it's handled.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, if you think back to Dennis Archer or Coleman Young, the way they worked council, things were a lot more efficient, and you didn't have a lot of these sort of surprises where the mayor says, I want to do something, and it seems like it's going to get done, but then you get to the council table and everyone's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I mean, each of those mayors had somebody who worked that council floor.
But you got to have an effective check. You got to have a check and balance system.
Absolutely.
And the way this is set up now, there's a real potential. If it's handled badly, if you've got a mayor who wants to be boss and wants sort of that boss role in government,
I think that's your favorite phrase to describe Mike Duggan as Boss Mike.
And that's who he's been. I mean, I don't think.
That's his persona. I mean, that's his political persona for sure. And, I think that's how he is initially, at least, going to manage things in City Hall.
It almost feels like that is a bad thing when we talk about the political machines of years past. But yet here we have someone who came through that and has that persona. And you're talking about it as a positive. Is that what the
we're not
city
necessarily
Nolan
talking
doesn't
about
think it's as positive as I do.
Yeah. I mean, well, I was here during the Wayne County years, and yes, they got things done, but a lot done. A lot of people also got very wealthy off their associations with county government, and I'm not still sure yet we have a strong enough ethics ordinance to keep those sort of things from happening again, to keep people from coming in and using their contacts and their attachments to the mayor's office, to the city, using sort of their political ties to make themselves very wealthy. We've been through that in this city just very recently. I think we need to put in a lot more safeguards to keep that from happening again.
Bottom line, we've talked about this election, that this is a time in Detroit's history that is pivotal, and that this next generation is going to take the city forward the next year should it come out of emergency management. Do we have the right people in place, Stephen?
I think we're pretty close. I mean, I was fairly encouraged with the council results. I mean, I think there were good people running, and I think voters made very good choices in most of the, with a couple exceptions. I do think Mike Duggan can be a really good mayor. I think there's going to be a challenge for him to sort of adjust to this role with Kevyn Orr and the governor. That's not going to be, what he's accustomed to. But if he can focus on building a good team, that's so important. I mean, getting the right people to work with him in City Hall. That was Dave Bing's undoing, and focus on running the city in a way that delivers services better, which is really the only thing that he's got on his plate for the next year. We're going to be in pretty good shape if we can come out of the bankruptcy with less debt, restructured government. I would be optimistic.
There's an opportunity, but people are expecting miracles here. They voted a guy in who promised he could turn around. He is going to have to deliver some big results and deliver them quickly, and the challenges are simply enormous. The level of deterioration in Detroit, we haven't seen this level of destruction in an American city since Civil War Atlanta.
And history in the making as we watch what happens next. Well, the healthcare exchanges have been open for over a month with big problems. Websites not working, confusion over what it's going to cost. We sat down with the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Dan Loepp, for a candid look at what's happening in Michigan. I bet you can't go anywhere without people asking you about signing up for healthcare exchanges right now. And what are people asking you?
Early this morning in the gym, it started, as a matter of fact. People just want to know. They're concerned. I think looking at what's going on the website, I think it has created, obviously, a bigger fervor. We continue. We've ramped up. We've got almost an additional 400 people on the phones. So we're taking volumes of calls. People want to know what does it mean for me, is the bottom line. Our job is to make this thing work. The politics really don't matter to me. We cover 5 million people in this state, almost 200,000 individuals that we're crosswalking into new coverage. And so our job is to make it work. Hopefully, I think that what we're hearing, and I'm hearing it internally too, that they're making some progress on the website, so we can move on. And we're looking at, I think the government's looking at contingency measures. We've just got to cover people. We've got to get these people covered. That's my job, and that's collectively our job at Blue Cross.
Dan, the biggest confusion seems to be in the individual market.
Right.
People who buy their own health insurance. And those people are saying they're getting cancellation letters, their policies no longer comply with the Obamacare rules, and yet the administration is still saying, oh no, that shouldn't be happening because you were grandfathered in prior to 2010 if you had these policies, and yet those people are getting cancellation notices. What's the reality here of what's happening in that private insurance market?
Nolan, it's a mix. There are grandfathered policy. There's no doubt about it. That may be as much in our book as 30 or 40%. And then we're crosswalking people. We didn't give anybody a cancellation notice because you're you're crosswalking people from one policy to another. And I think it's important. It's an important distinction, at least the way we did it. I'm sure in the hearings you will find a letter that used the term cancellation. This is simply, we view it as a crosswalk. You're going from a policy that had this coverage. The law says you have to have a policy that has that coverage. So you crosswalk people from here to here. The problem is if you can't get information, which right now people are struggling to get information, it creates the fervor that we have. And what I'm recommending to people is you call us, or call HAP, or call Priority. Call your insurer. They're all in the same boat as we are. You've got extra people online. They know what their coverages are. You can get a lot of information by doing that. Now, ultimately, we got to get this thing to work in D.C. There's no doubt about it. I get that. But you can get a lot of information right now, right today, if you pick up the phone and call Blue Cross or any of our competitors.
But as you're crosswalking those policies, is there a sticker shock factor? Are those new policies costing more than the old policies?
It's a total mixed bag, Nolan.
Okay.
If you are a 60-year-old,
not just yet, but
it may be cheaper. If you're 22 for the same coverage, it may be more expensive. Okay. It's a mixed bag. I will tell you, in Michigan, it's a tad different because we've been the insurer of last resort forever. So we've had we've had the kind of coverages that are now national in Michigan for the last 40 years. So you will not see. I think the average we're about 15% lower than the average in the country, because of the way we've sort of been set up for the last 35 years, because we were the insurer last resort. Everybody was in our pool. That meant if you were sick, we didn't deny you. You came in, you'd write a policy just like if I was healthy, you and I were getting the same policy. That's what's going on now. That's been going on in Michigan for forever. And so you're not seeing the same types of things that you're hearing about around the country.
My friend here, of course, is discounting the credits that are available to a lot of people that will lower those costs over time. A lot of people were skeptical that companies like Blue Cross would embrace these exchanges and offer products. You guys obviously have decided to do that and are there with some fairly affordable products. I think you have like the second lowest cost product on some of the levels. What was your decision like to participate in this as opposed to sit on the sideline?
Well, a couple of things, Stephen. First of all, we are offering products in every zip code in Michigan. So it doesn't matter where you're at, you can get a Blue Cross product. And we've historically done that. We're going to historically do that. We become a mutual insurance company on January 1,
right?
Which changes from a governance standpoint, but from a business standpoint, we cover people. And we can see a model that our margins are not very large, but we want to cover people. That's what we do. So it seemed to me like a no-brainer. We've got really talented people in our shop. We're able to price these things that we will make a margin, hopefully somewhere between 0 and 1.5%. All right, but we're as big as we are because we cover 5 million people. You don't need large margins, and that's another thing in the industry. We've never made large margins, so in this new world, we're sort of in the spot we've always been. So we've got, I think, a competitive advantage because we're doing the same things that a lot of people are now learning to do, I would say.
Dan, let me take a step over from healthcare a little bit and talk about the city of Detroit. You're a huge booster of the city,
right,
and the company has been as well. Now coming off of a mayoral election, but also the city waiting for if they're indeed going to be eligible for bankruptcy protection. Where do you see the future of the city headed where we are right now?
I'm amazed. I'm really bullish. If you look, and I was born and raised on the east side, grown up here, spent the majority of my life here. There's actual stuff going on. Now, granted, there is a broken city government. We all agree with that, and there are problems that have to get fixed. But if you look at what's going on in the private sector, virtually every aspect of the private sector, when you move from the riverfront to down Jefferson, Lafayette Park, Corktown, up to as far north as where Henry Ford Hospital is in the new center area, and now with the new Illich development along Woodward, this is phenomenal. You cannot get an apartment, you can't get a condo, you can't get a parking place. That says something's humming. Now, we've got to deal with crime. There aren't enough cops out there. That needs to happen. There are not enough firemen. There are not enough EMS trucks, okay? We know that. And so we've got to work with the city to help those things move. But I will tell you, our employees are excited about being down here. You walk around Campus Martius, it's a whole heck of a lot different than it was when I started here. And we're already blowing through our first $1 million in the Live Downtown project because people want to live downtown. And the problem is to refund this thing, there's nowhere else to go. And what it's doing, and the real reason we did it was to incentivize the private sector to say, listen, we're going to start this thing, see what it looks like, and then it makes sense for private businesses to build, to reinvest, because people are going to buy the product.
Our thanks to Dan Loepp, and that'll do it for MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Business Leaders for Michigan is dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and economic growth. Learn more at businessleadersformichigan.com. Funding is also provided by Delta.